Firefighter saves a baby from the trash. 25 years later, he receives an unexpected call that forces him to reflect on the impact of his heroic act. The morning was quiet, a stillness that wrapped around the small town like a warm blanket. Suddenly, the jarring sound of an ambulance siren sliced through the peace, causing Jackson Hale to jump in his chair. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was too early for emergencies. His heart began to race when his phone buzzed on the table. An unexpected call. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. Who could it be? "Hello?" he answered, his voice steady, despite the rising unease in his chest. "Mr. Hale?" A calm, yet urgent voice floated through the line. "This is Sarah, a social worker. I have news about Lily." Lily. The name hit Jackson like a wave crashing against the shore, stirring memories long buried. It had been 25 years since he rescued her from the charred remains of a fire, a day etched in his mind forever. He remembered the chaos, the smoke, and the desperate cries of the lost. "Is she okay?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "She's struggling," Sarah replied, her tone softening. "She needs your help." Jackson's heart raced faster now, pounding like a drum in his ears. Memories flooded back. The moment he found her, the tiny bundle abandoned and alone in the rubble. He had been just a boy then, a young man who had acted on instinct, a single act of bravery that had changed his life forever. But that day was also the beginning of a lifetime filled with questions. Guilt crept in, reminding him of the years lost, the distance between them. "What do you mean she's struggling?" he asked, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. "She's facing some personal demons," Sarah explained. "We believe reconnecting with you could help her." Jackson's mind spiraled. A mix of nostalgia and longing for redemption battled with the fear of reliving the past. How had a moment of courage led to this? He had saved a life, but at what cost? The shadows of his decisions loomed large, darkening his thoughts. "Mr. Hale?" Sarah's voice pulled him back. "Are you there?" "Yeah, I'm here," he replied, shaking off the weight of his memories. I didn't expect this news." "It's a lot to take in," she said. "But you have a chance to be there for her." Jackson closed his eyes, envisioning the little girl he had rescued. She had been so small, frail, and yet filled with a flicker of life that refused to be extinguished. He had promised himself then that he would always protect her, but as years passed and life swept him away, he had become an invisible figure in her story. "What if I'm not what she needs?" he asked, doubt creeping into his thoughts. "Sometimes just being there is enough," Sarah reassured him. "You can't change the past, but you can help her with her future." A profound silence settled between them. Jackson let the weight of her words sink in. The thought of Lily, now a woman, grappling with her own struggles, filled him with a mix of hope and fear. Would she even want to see him after all this time? Would she blame him for everything that had happened since that day? "I need time to think," Jackson finally said, his voice steady but uncertain. "I understand," Sarah replied softly. "Just remember, she needs you now more than ever." As he hung up the phone, Jackson sat in silence, the morning sun streaming through the window. The world outside continued in its mundane rhythm, but inside him, a storm brewed. The question lingered. How could one brave act lead to a lifetime of emotional turmoil? He needed to figure it out, for both their sakes. With a heavy heart and a mind racing with memories, Jackson knew that something had to change. He had a chance to confront the past, to step into a role he had long avoided. Would he find the strength to do it? The answer was yet to be revealed, but one thing was clear. The quiet morning had been shattered, and there was no turning back now. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm light on the scene of chaos below. Flames danced and crackled, consuming everything in their path. Young Jackson Hale, barely 16, stood frozen for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. The smell of smoke filled the air, and the cries of people echoed around him. It was a nightmare, but in that moment, he felt a strange pull towards the burning building. "Help! Somebody! Please!" a voice cried out from the rubble, piercing through the chaos. Jackson's instincts kicked in. He could not just stand there. He had to do something. With quick determination, Jackson rushed toward the flames. He felt the heat on his skin, but he pushed through. Every step felt like a battle, but he was driven by something stronger than fear. As he reached the entryway, he heard the voice again, more desperate this time. "Please, I'm here." He followed the sound, moving debris aside with all his strength. Then, he saw her, a small bundle hidden among the wreckage. It was a baby, barely alive, wrapped in a filthy blanket. Jackson's heart sank. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. "I've got you," he shouted, his voice breaking. He scooped up the tiny girl, cradling her in his arms. Her little body felt so fragile. "I'm going to get you out of here." As he turned to escape the hellish scene, he could hear the distant sirens of the fire trucks getting closer. The moment felt surreal. He was a hero, saving a life. Yet, as he stepped out into the light, the weight of his decision began to settle in. He had taken this child from the wreckage, but what would that mean for him? Jackson's world changed that day. He took Lily, the baby he had saved, into his life. He named her Lily because he wanted her to bloom despite the darkness that surrounded her beginnings. However, as days turned into weeks and weeks into years, the emotional weight of that decision grew heavier. He often sat on the porch, watching her play in the yard, a mix of pride and fear filling his heart. "You're going to be amazing, Lily," he would whisper to himself, but the fear of the unknown gnawed at him. What kind of father could he be to a child who had suffered so much? As Jackson grew into adulthood, stories of his bravery spread through the town. He became known as the local hero, the boy who saved a baby from the flames. People would approach him in the streets, patting him on the back and praising him. "You did a good thing, Jackson," they would say. "You're a hero." Yet, beneath the surface of his newfound status, shadows loomed. Jackson wrestled with nightmares of the fire, replaying the scene over and over in his mind. What if I hadn't found her? He would ask himself late at night. The guilt of his actions began to seep into his relationships. His family felt the strain as Jackson put all his energy into raising Lily. "Jackson, you can't keep doing this alone," his mother would say, concern etched across her face. "You need to talk to us." But Jackson would shake his head. "I can't. I have to focus on Lily. She needs me." In his quest to be a hero, he had unintentionally distanced himself from his own family. The irony was not lost on him. He had saved one life, yet, in doing so, he had lost touch with those who loved him most. The weight of his choices began to settle in, and Jackson knew he had to face the truth. He had created a bond with Lily, but it had come at a cost. "Maybe I need to reach out," he whispered to himself one night, gazing at the stars. But fear held him back. What if he could not mend the ties he had broken? What if he faced the pain of his past? Little did he know, the phone call from the social worker would force him to confront all these feelings, and the steps he had taken would lead him back to the very person he had saved, a daughter he still had so much to learn about. Jackson stared out the window, his heart heavy with thoughts of Lily. The morning light streamed in, but it did little to brighten the shadows lurking in his mind. He had spent years trying to forget the pain of their separation, yet the memories clung to him like a stubborn fog. Each glance at the phone reminded him of the social worker's call. Could he really reach out to the daughter he barely knew? With every passing moment, the distance between him and Lily felt more like an insurmountable chasm. Jackson remembered her small face, the way she looked when he had first held her. A wave of nostalgia washed over him, but it was quickly chased away by a tide of guilt. He had saved her, yes, but at what cost? His mind raced with thoughts of his own daughter, the one he had lost in the chaos of his past choices. His phone buzzed suddenly, and he jumped. It was the social worker again, hoping to check on him. He answered, forcing a calm tone into his voice. "Hello? Jackson, I just wanted to see if you've thought more about meeting Lily," the social worker said, her voice warm, yet firm. "I'm not sure," he replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "What if she doesn't want to see me? What if I just make things worse?" "Lily needs your help," she urged gently. "She is struggling. This could be a chance for both of you to heal." Jackson closed his eyes, trying to block out the memories of the past. "I don't know if I can do this. It's been so long." "Sometimes the hardest steps are the ones that lead to the most healing," she said softly. "You won't know until you try." After hanging up, Jackson sat in silence, his thoughts swirling. The idea of meeting Lily filled him with both hope and dread. What would he say? Would she even want to talk to him after all these years? Finally, he made up his mind. He would reach out to her. He picked up his phone again, his hands shaking slightly as he typed a message. "Lily, it's Jackson. I would like to meet you. Please let me know if you're open to it." He hesitated before hitting send, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on him. As he waited for a response, Jackson paced around the room, feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. What if she rejected him? What if she blamed him for everything? Moments felt like hours until his phone chimed. "I'd like that," the message read simply. His heart raced, a quickening pulse of hope. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jackson found himself standing outside a small cafe. The air was thick with tension, and he could feel his stomach churning. He had imagined this moment countless times, but nothing could prepare him for the reality of it. When Lily walked in, Jackson's breath caught in his throat. She looked so much like him, yet so different. Her hair was dark and wild, framing her face, which held a mix of determination and uncertainty. He stood up, unsure of how to greet her. "Hey," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Hi," she replied, her eyes searching his face for something. Answers, perhaps. They both sat down, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. "I'm really glad you came," he said, trying to break the ice. "I've thought about you a lot over the years." Lily looked down at her hands, fidgeting with the edge of the table. "I didn't think you would want to see me," she said softly. "I mean, after everything that happened." "I never stopped wanting to know you," Jackson admitted, feeling the weight of truth hang in the air. "I've made mistakes, a lot of them, but I want to be here for you now." She met his gaze, and in that moment, Jackson could see the walls she had built around herself. "It's just hard," she replied, her voice trembling. "I don't understand why you left." "I thought I was doing the right thing by trying to protect you," he explained, a lump forming in his throat. "But I see now that I hurt you more than I helped." As they sat together, both feeling the pain of lost years, Jackson realized that healing would not be easy. But this moment, their first conversation, was a start. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with old wounds and new fears, but he knew they had taken the first step together. The air felt thick with unspoken words as Jackson stepped into the small cafe where he was to meet Lily. His heart raced, each beat echoing the uncertainty that filled him. He glanced around, hoping to spot Lily before she saw him. Finally, he saw her sitting at a corner table, her gaze fixed out the window. She looked so different from the baby he had rescued. Gone was the innocence, replaced by a young woman who carried the weight of years. Taking a deep breath, Jackson approached the table. "Lily?" he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, her eyes widening in surprise. "Jackson?" The name felt foreign on her tongue, yet it held a hint of familiarity. "Yeah, it's me," he replied, pulling out a chair across from her. There was a long pause, thick with tension. The years they had lost hovered between them like a ghost. I didn't think you would come, Lily finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson felt a pang of guilt. I almost didn't, he admitted. But I wanted to see you. I wanted to talk. Talk about what? She asked, crossing her arms as if to shield herself. About how you left me? About how you chose to save me but then disappeared from my life? Her words hit him hard. I never meant to hurt you, Lily. I thought I was doing the right thing. She scoffed, shaking her head. Right thing? You took me from a burning building and then just vanished. I grew up without you, without knowing why you made that choice. Jackson felt a lump in his throat. He knew she was right. I was scared. I didn't know how to be a father. I was still a kid myself. I thought I could save you, and then just go back to my life. Return to your life? Lily echoed, her voice rising. What about my life? I had to learn how to survive on my own. I've thought about you every day, Jackson confessed, his voice cracking. I've carried the weight of that decision for 25 years. I've wanted to reach out, but I didn't know how. Silence enveloped them. Lily's expression shifted from anger to something softer, a hint of sadness flickering in her eyes. You don't get to just show up and expect everything to be okay, she said quietly. I've had to deal with being abandoned. Do you even understand how that feels? I can't imagine, Jackson replied, his heart aching for the pain she had endured. But I want to understand. I want to help you. Help me? She said, raising an eyebrow. How can you help me after all this time? You don't even know who I am now. I want to learn, he said earnestly. I want to know you, Lily. I want to be here for you, if you'll let me. Her gaze softened, but a wall still stood between them. Why should I trust you? You left me once. What's to stop you from leaving again? Jackson leaned closer, his voice steady. I know I can't change the past, but I can promise you this. I won't walk away again. I want to be part of your life. Lily looked down at her hands, the weight of his words sinking in. It's hard for me. I feel lost and confused. I thought I was okay, but I'm not. I understand, Jackson replied gently. We can take this one step at a time. I'm here to listen, to support you. You're not alone anymore. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she met his gaze. I don't know how to start, she whispered. Maybe we can start by sharing our stories, Jackson suggested. Tell me about your life. What have you been through? With a shaky breath, Lily began to speak, her voice trembling as she opened up about her struggles. Jackson listened intently, his heart breaking for the girl who had grown up without him. As they talked, he felt a flicker of hope ignite between them, a fragile connection slowly beginning to mend the years of hurt. The air in the cafe shifted as they both dared to bridge the gap of lost time, their vulnerabilities intertwining, and the first steps toward healing took root in the fragile space of their reunion. As Jackson sat in the small cafe, the smell of coffee and pastries filled the air. He stirred his drink absent-mindedly, his thoughts drifting back to the conversation he had with Lily just days before. The weight of his past pressed heavily on his shoulders. How did I let it get this far? He whispered to himself, feeling the sting of regret. Across the table, Lily was lost in her own memories. The flashbacks of her childhood played in her mind like a movie. She remembered the nights spent hiding from the anger of her mother, the days when she felt invisible in a crowded room. Her heart ached as she thought about the times she wished for a father's love, a father who would not abandon her. I just wanted someone to see me, she murmured, barely loud enough for Jackson to hear. Jackson looked up, sensing her pain. Lily, he began slowly, I wish I could change everything for you. I wish I had been there. His voice trembled with the weight of his words. I never meant to leave you. Lily looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and sadness. But you did leave, Jackson. You were supposed to save me. You were my hero, and then you were gone. She took a deep breath, trying to hold back tears. I had to learn to survive without you, Jackson's heart sank. He felt a deep sense of inadequacy wash over him. "I know I failed you," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could be the hero, but I didn't know how to be a father. I still don't." Lily shifted in her seat, her expression softening slightly. "It's not just about being a hero, Jackson. It's about being there when it matters." She paused, searching his face for understanding. "You don't know what it was like for me. I felt lost and alone." Taking a deep breath, Jackson looked into her eyes. "Tell me, Lily. Please, I need to understand." His voice was steady, filled with a sincerity that surprised even him. Lily hesitated, but the warmth in his gaze encouraged her. "I remember the day you found me," she began. "I was so scared. I thought no one would help me. But then you came, and I thought everything would be okay." She paused, letting the memory wash over her. "But then, when you left, it felt like I was thrown away all over again." Jackson felt his chest tighten. "I was so young, so afraid," he confessed. "I didn't know how to be a father. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how wrong I was." Lily looked at him, her expression softening. "It's okay to be scared, you know. I've been scared too. But we can face it together now." As they shared their truths, a small bond began to form. They laughed softly at shared memories, even as they faced the pain. Jackson felt a flicker of hope. "I want to be here for you now, Lily. I want to help you in ways I couldn't before." Lily nodded, a small smile creeping onto her face. "I'd like that. I really would." With each passing moment, they began to peel away the layers of hurt that had built up over the years. Jackson felt lighter, as if the weight of his past was slowly lifting. "What do you need from me?" he asked, eager to support her. "I need you to listen," Lily replied, her voice steady. "I need you to be there when I'm struggling. I need to know I'm not alone." "I can do that," Jackson promised earnestly. "I won't run away again. I'll be here when you need me." As they left the cafe, a sense of renewed purpose filled the air. Jackson took a deep breath, feeling a spark of determination. They were two people bound by shared pain, yet now they were on a path toward healing. Each step they took together was a step closer to mending what had been broken. That day, amidst the laughter and the honesty, Jackson began to understand that while the scars of their past would always remain, the possibility of a brighter future was within reach. Together, they could face whatever lay ahead. The room was filled with silence, heavy with unspoken words and shared pain. Jackson and Lily sat across from each other, their eyes locked in a moment that felt both surreal and necessary. Jackson could see the hurt in Lily's gaze, a reflection of his own heartache. "I never wanted to leave you," Jackson finally said, his voice trembling. "I thought I was doing the right thing." Lily's expression softened for a brief moment, but soon the walls around her heart began to rise again. "You didn't even know me," she replied, her tone sharp. "You saved me, but then you left me. I was just a baby. I needed you." "I know," Jackson whispered, his throat tight. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought you would have a better life without me." He paused, taking a deep breath. "But I see now how wrong I was." Tears filled Lily's eyes as she looked away. "It's hard to understand. I grew up feeling like I was a mistake, like I wasn't worth keeping." Her voice cracked as she spoke, and Jackson felt a surge of guilt wash over him. "That wasn't true," he insisted, leaning forward. "You were never a mistake. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, even if I didn't know how to be your father." Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her anger dissipating slightly. "It doesn't change the past. I had to figure everything out on my own. And now I'm just lost." Jackson felt a pang of sadness as he saw her struggle. "I want to help you, Lily. I want to be there for you now. I know I can't fix everything, but I can try." "Try?" She scoffed, her voice tinged with skepticism. "You can't just try and expect things to change. It doesn't work like that." "I know," he replied, his heart racing. "But I want to be present in your life. I want to learn who you are and what you need. I want to make things right, even if it takes time." Lily looked at him, her defenses starting to crumble. "Do you really mean that? Can you actually be there? Or is this just another promise that will fade away?" "I promise," Jackson said firmly, his eyes earnest. "I'm done running away from my mistakes. I want to face them head on, starting with you." A long silence fell between them, filled with the sound of their breathing. Finally, Lily exhaled deeply. "Okay, but it's going to be hard. I'm not the same little girl you saved. I have scars that run deep." "I don't expect it to be easy," Jackson said, a slight smile breaking through. "But I believe we can work through it together. We can start fresh, one step at a time." Lily hesitated, then nodded slowly. I guess it's worth a shot. But you have to understand, I'm scared. Scared of getting hurt again." "I'm scared too," Jackson admitted, his voice soft. "But we can't let fear control us. We owe it to ourselves to try." As they talked, the tension in the room began to ease. They shared stories, laughter, and even a few painful memories. With each passing moment, the connection between them grew stronger. Jackson began to feel hope, a flicker of light in the darkness that had shadowed their lives for so long. "Do you think we can really do this?" Lily asked, her eyes searching his. "Yes," Jackson replied with conviction. "I believe we can. Together, we can heal. We can build a relationship based on honesty and trust." Lily took a deep breath, a small smile forming on her lips. "Okay then, let's start with today, one step at a time." As they sat together, sharing their thoughts and dreams, Jackson felt a warmth spreading in his chest. He realized that this moment, this connection, was the beginning of something beautiful. Although the past could not be changed, the future held the promise of healing and love. In that shared space of vulnerability, they both understood that forgiveness was not only possible, but essential. With each word spoken, they were crafting a new narrative, one filled with hope and the resilience of the human spirit. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about how an unexpected visit has changed your life, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this one. Let's spread the message of hope and healing together.